Hey, welcome to the Nation of Eyeballs. If you are new, Kaspa here. Today I'm very excited for the wonderful traps that I'm going to show you in this video. 10 uncommon traps that you can use in the London system or against the London system. Alright, here goes nothing. So for beginners who don't know what the London system is, well, this is where white starts with d4 and then develops the dark squared bishop before making this pawn chain on the center of the board. So you can see that. Of course, they will develop the knight to f3 in the early stages of the opening. And this is the structure that we're going to see throughout this video. So trap number 1, the bishop takes h7 common trap. So simply begin with d4, then after knight f6, you go bishop f4. Still the Indian defense, black usually plays e6, and then you go e3, and here black usually plays d5. After this, you're only going to see the top played moves, you guys, from black. Go knight f3. And bishop d6 in this position is the top played move in both the lichess and the master's database. So after bishop d6, instead of playing bishop g3, the main move, I recommend the following tricky line. Knight e5 immediately, and again castle shot is the most played move, after which you go bishop d3, and this is when they play c5. Now whenever you see c5, just know they may play pawn to c4 chasing your light squared bishop away. That's why you play c3 to create a room for your light squared bishop. Again, knight c6 is the top played move here. Black is putting more pressure on the e5 square, after which you go knight d2. The plan is to go knight df3 to add another defender to your knight on e5. Kaspa, this is now move 8. Where are the traps? Wait, you guys. So this is where you will see most of your opponents making a lot of mistakes. They want to kiss KISS, but they can't do it with knight takes e5 because they're going to fork the bishop and the knight. So they mostly do it with a bishop. So whenever you see this move, it's time for you to celebrate and take back with a pawn. And after knight d7, well, you go knight f3. And after queen c7, which is a very common blunder, you guys, simply shake your opponent's eyeballs with bishop takes h7, which normally occurs on move 11. And after king takes, because what else? You simply go knight g5 check, and black normally goes back, after which you go queen h5, intending to mate on h7. And after something like rook d8 by black, well, you don't go queen h7 check. You first of all open the f file with queen takes f7 check, and after king h8 you go queen h5 check, and king g8. Now that's when you go queen h7 check, king f8, queen h8 check. This is a common checkmate pattern that you guys should know in the London system. Oh, what if black doesn't go back after you take on h7 with your bishop? Let's say after knight g5 check, instead of king g8, what if they play king g6? Well, you simply go queen c2 check. If king h6, you have queen h7 checkmate. And if pawn to f5, which they normally do, you go e takes f6. This is checked by your queen, and at the same time threatening to win black's queen on c7 with your bishop. Let's say after king takes f6. First you save your knight with check, and after king e7 you take the queen on c7. Anyways, so clearly after knight d2, black doesn't have to take on e5, but just play normally with something like queen c7, and then you just continue playing normal chess here. And the best I can recommend when you reach this common position is just to simplify the game even further. You just trade off all the pieces and put your knight on e5. Next you're going to play f3 and open up the f file for your rook. Anyways, let's look at some more interesting and unique traps. Trap number 2 with black pieces. So white starts with d4 and then you play knight f6. Then hey, some London players prefer starting with knight to f3 instead of bishop f4 right away. So after knight to f3, you can go pawn to c5. And if they play bishop f4, trying to play the London, this is where you surprise them by taking right away on d4. You guys have to know this trap. If knight takes on d4, it's time to shake your opponent's eyeballs once again with the move pawn to e5, double attacking the bishop and the knight, and here white is going to lose a piece. So after bishop takes e5, the only sensible move, you now go queen f5 check, Kaspa's signature move, and you will definitely win a piece. From there, you can just continue playing normally, you guys. What I like doing is going for simplification and trade off as many pieces as I can, messing up my opponent's pawns, then putting my king to safety and start playing on the other side of the board. Hey, but after c takes d4, what if white doesn't take on d4 with his knight? Well, the other move that they like playing in this position, apart from knight takes d4, the top played move is bishop takes b8. Well, here you just take back on b8, and after queen takes d4, attacking your pawn on a7 as well, well, you just go pawn to b6. Stockfish thinks black is doing better in this position, with many opportunities. Let's say e4, you go pawn to e6. e5, bishop c5 attacking the queen. If queen h4, you have knight d5, exchange queens, and Stockfish says black will be better. If white chooses to take with the queen, well, you simply go d6, ready to play pawn to e5, so queen d1 is what everybody plays, after which you go queen b6, attacking the undefended pawn on b2. If pawn to b3, you simply go knight e4, intending to mate on f2. So if pawn to e3, you simply go pawn to g5. I mean, what do you know about Kaspa? The idea is that if knight takes, that'll be a blunder because you're going to win a free piece after queen a5 check. So that's just one little trap that you can try out in this line. But if white doesn't take, let's say they play bishop g3, you can simply go pawn to h5, wanting to trap the bishop. And if bishop d3 counter attacking your knight, well, you can just go pawn to f5, protecting your knight. And after bishop takes, you take back on a4. And again, white can lose a piece here if he plays knight takes g5, thinking that's a free pawn because we have queen a5 check, and once again winning a free piece. Alright, let's move on to another trap. Trap number 3, I call this the knight c7 check Benoni trap for white, where we start with d4, then black responds with knight f6. It doesn't matter even if they start with a Benoni, so you go bishop f4, pawn to e6, e3, and in the last trap for white, we saw that pawn to d5 is the main move in this position, but yes, black can still go pawn to c5, which is mostly played at the top level. Well, against this, just go knight f3, and here, advanced players play knight c6, since they have already developed their c pawn. So whenever I see this Benoni structure, plus black's 2 knights along the 6th rank, I change my plan of going pawn to c3 and rather play knight c3. The plan is to go knight b5 next and put more pressure on the c7 square with my dark squared bishop on f4. So whenever you see pawn to d5 right in this position, just know that this is a positional mistake, you guys. You simply go knight b5 and there's nothing that black can do. If they go e5, just take that pawn. If knight takes, take back with your bishop, and the threat still remains. So black will be forced to play king d7 maybe, after which you go knight c7. This reminds me of the game that was played between international master Eric Rosen versus GM Jonas Jerry on Lichess. And this is how the game went exactly. Black played rook b8. Since the rook was under attack, then Eric played bishop b5 check. And after king e7, d takes c5 was played. Bishop e6, bishop d6 check, and black will be forced to give up his queen in this line. This is just one beautiful trap to know in the London system. So after you play knight c3, wanting to play knight b5 next, if black rushes with queen b6, targeting your undefended pawn, well, you simply go pawn to a3. This is a sneaky move called the poisoned pawn line, where you allow black to take your poisoned pawn on b2, because now you can go knight a4 and black's queen is trapped. Okay, let's move on. Trap number 4 with black pieces. White begins with d4 and then you go d5. I love this trap with all my eyeballs. Bishop f4 is what they play next, after which you go pawn to h5. Now look at the Lichess database once again, you guys. Pawn to e3 is by far the top played move. Even in the Masters database, people just blaze out this move, but this is a blunder because of pawn to e5 and white's London bishop is dead. Or they can play bishop takes e5, but you simply go f6, and if bishop f4, you can go g5, bishop g3 and pawn to h4, and the bishop is dead. Well, after pawn to e5, it doesn't matter even if white doesn't take the pawn. Let's say if they go bishop g3, well, you simply go h4 first, and after bishop takes e5, only sensible move, you go pawn to f6, trapping the bishop once again. Let's move on. Trap number 5, so you start with d4. So black has learned his lesson not to play the Benoni structure with e6 and c5. So now they switch to d5. Let's punish them as well. Simply go bishop f4. And after knight to f6 by black, you go e3. Now here if you check the Masters database, pawn to c5 is by far the top played move, after which I recommend you go knight to f3. This is a little bit different from the line that I showed you at first, because black hasn't played pawn to e6 or knight c6 yet. In fact, if black plays knight c6, you may consider playing knight c3, going into the knight c7 check Benoni trap that I showed you earlier on. The second most played move, as you can see in the Masters database and also in the Lichess database, is queen b6, targeting your undefended b2 pawn. But here I recommend you play knight c3, simply ignoring that pawn. This is called the poisoned pawn trap, you guys. If queen takes b2, you simply go knight b5, because next you want to play knight c7 check and win the rook on a8. And black's queen is nearly trapped in this position, you guys. If knight a6, stopping knight c7 check, don't play pawn to a3, simply go rook b1. And after queen takes a2, this is why you can force a draw, especially if you are playing against a higher rated opponent with very much experience, or let's say you have some stomach problem and you want to go home. But if you want to continue and win this game, you can simply take on a6, sacrificing your rook. That's a brilliant move, because after b takes a6, you have knight c7 check, and that will win the rook on a8. It doesn't matter what they do. Queen c3 check, you have queen d2. And next you're going to rescue your knight freely if black won't see knight e8. Yeah, but then you will still go bishop b8 and start winning all of black's pawns. Anyways, now this is why you'd want to thank me by simply hitting the like button if at all you are enjoying this video, and also subscribe to my channel if at all you haven't already, because that's how you encourage me to keep on making more wonderful videos just like this one. And also feel free to visit my website www.KaspaChess.com and get yourself a free mini course after signing up for my free masterclass, and also check out for my courses that are very affordable at the moment. You can subscribe to my channel during this short break, like in 4 seconds. Trap number 6, the landed bishop trap for black, where white starts with d4, you go d5, again they play bishop f4, and then you play h5. This time, black may not play pawn to e3, which is the most played move in the Lichess database, because they already know this trap, so they are going to play knight to f3, the correct move, stopping your pawn to e5 idea. Here I recommend this tricky move, you guys, pawn to f6. Not objectively the best move, like e6 in the previous position, but f6 is quite interesting. Again, pawn to e3 in this position is the top played move, you guys. As you can see in the Lichess database, the correct move here for white is supposed to be pawn to c4, but unless you are playing against Dogfish, no average human player is going to play that. So e3 is what everybody plays. Again, this is a blunder. You simply go pawn to g5, and after g3, you go pawn to h4, trapping the bishop once again. So after pawn to f6, instead of pawn to e3 by white, if they choose to play something else like pawn to h3, paving way for the dark squared bishop, well, I don't recommend going pawn to g5 right away. Simply develop your light squared bishop first before playing that move, so that after pawn to e3, you go pawn to e6, and if bishop d3, which is what they do, that's when you go pawn to g5, attacking the dark squared bishop. If bishop takes f5, play e takes e5, and bishop h4, you go bishop d6. Keep it so simple. Queen d3, you go knight e7, protecting the pawn. If castle short, you go knight b c6, and next you can develop your queen and castle long, or maybe you can just go king f7 and later king g7. Your king will be very safe from there. You have your rook on h8, doing a great job along the h file. Anyways, let's move on. Trap number 7, the e5 battle. Now this is a must know trap for you guys. You start with d4 and then they go d5, bishop f4, knight f6, e3, e6. We're just playing the same things, you guys. So you go bishop d3. Now wait a second. In the intro of this video, we saw that bishop d6 is what everybody plays, and remember I recommended to play knight f3 and knight e5 before developing your light squared bishop, but there are many ways to kill a rat. The other move that you're going to see here is pawn to c5, especially at the top level. Well, after pawn to c5, you go c3 to allow bishop c2 next if pawn to c4 by black. So they are going to play knight c6, the top played move. Whenever you see knight to c6, just remember to play knight to f3 in most cases. So bishop d6, you go bishop g3. Under normal circumstances, black is advised not to take on g3 because that would just help white to open up the h file for his king's rook. And so you're not going to see that trade happen in most of the times. They normally castle short, after which you go knight b2. Now the key in most of these London lines, you guys, is to delay castling. You can see that our king is still on the center. This is why you're going to see black playing queen e8 or queen c7. It doesn't matter. The battle of the e5 square now begins. As you can see, black is preparing to push pawn to e5, supported by these highlighted pieces. So you simply go knight e5 here to stop pawn to e5. And the top played move again is knight d7 here, after which you remember this sequence of moves, you guys. knight takes d7 first, attacking the rook on f8, and after bishop takes, you take the bishop, and after queen takes, you take the free pawn on c5. How is that free? Because if queen takes c5, which is the main area of our mate in this line, now you can simply shake your opponent's eyeballs once again with the move bishop takes h7, sacrifice, and after king takes, you go queen h5 check, plus indirectly attacking black's queen on c5. If king g8, you simply go knight e4, attacking the queen, because black cannot take our knight, we're going to take his free queen on c5. So they're going to play queen c4, after which you go knight g5, intending to checkmate on h7, and after queen d3 stopping the mate on h7, you simply go pawn to e4. There's nothing that black can do here. Let's say rook fd8. We don't go queen h7 right away. Remember our first trap, you guys. First of all, open up the f file, and after king h8, yes, you can play queen h5, but why not rook d1, attacking your enemy's piece first, and after queen c4, you go pawn to f4. If queen c5, trying to go back to f8, or maybe queen e3 check, there's a mate in 6 in this line, which black cannot stop. Anyways, so after queen takes c5, a positional mistake, and then you take on h7, king takes, queen h5 check, king g8, and knight e4. If black is using stockfish and finds pawn to g6, well, simply go knight takes queen, and after pawn takes queen, you take the free bishop, attacking the rook, and after rook fd8, you go check, king f8, you take that free pawn on h5. Here you're just 2 pawns up and simply winning. You can castle long if you want and start advancing your kingside pawns. Let's move on. Trap number 8, I call this the knight h4 trap for black, where white starts with d4, and the trap that I'm about to show you guys works against white's queen's gambit setup. So now it is us playing the reverse London system. So after d5, white will play c4, the queen's gambit, after which I recommend you go pawn to c6. This is called the Slav defense, you guys. My favorite defense against the queen's gambit. You can check out my semi-Slav defense course at www.KaspaChess.com, which is very affordable at the moment and you're going to appreciate. Anyways, the idea is to trade off our light squared bishop as early as we can and start developing normally. So knight to f3 is what everybody plays. I don't recommend going bishop g4, because white can play knight e5. So develop knight to f6 first, and after pawn to e3, that's when you think of playing the reverse London system with bishop f5. Our main idea is to chop white's light squared bishop or the queen's knight immediately, which explains why strong players play knight c3, because if somebody plays knight h4, attacking your light squared bishop, one of the most in the master's database by the way, you simply go knight takes b1, and after rook takes, that's when you go pawn to e5 immediately, wanting to go pawn to e4 and pawn to g5 next, trapping white's knight. So you will see them take on e5, and before playing knight e5, a normal move, go crazy with bishop b4 check first. The idea is to delay white's development and make him lose the right to castle. If they go bishop d2, blocking the check, because obviously white cannot block this check with his elbow or his toes, so they have to do it with a bishop, after which I recommend bishop takes, that's check, and after queen takes, you simply go knight e4, shaking your opponent's eyeballs and at the same time winning his free knight on h4. But there's a tricky line that I want you guys to know in this position where white plays knight c3 immediately, intending to go queen b3. The only thing I would love you to remember in this position is knight c3 equals queen b6. So you should rush with queen b6, that's all. Because now your b7 pawn is protected and white will not put more pressure on your d5 pawn with his queen's knight and his queen, which was supposed to sit on b3. So if bishop d3, you can take and play pawn to e6, but I like pawn to e6 here, letting white to take me because I want to maintain my pawns on the center, and after queen d3 attacking my pawn, I go pawn to g6. The plan is not to play bishop g7, but to go bishop d6 later on. If c takes d5, I take back with my pawn, see how I maintain my center pawns. If castle shot, I develop my queen's knight first, and after knight e5, I develop my bishop, and next I can castle shot if I want. They normally play f4, that's when I castle shot. I'll play knight if next and play pawn to f6, forcing white to take my knight, and then I'll take back with my b pawn. Alright. Trap number 9. I call this the bishop s6 trap for white, you guys. So we start with d4, then black responds with knight f6, bishop f4, d5, pawn to e3, then instead of pawn to e6 this time, black again plays pawn to c5. Well, you simply go knight to f3. Remember? Again, knight c6. This is all that you're going to be seeing, you guys. Anything is playable here. I like knight bd2, waiting for black to play bishop g4. So this trap works if black plays the second move in the Lichess database, bishop g4. That's when I go pawn to c3. The idea is that if they go pawn to e6, now I can simply unpin my knight by going queen a4. And so the top played move, as you can see in the Lichess database, is bishop d6, which all my opponents play, which again is a blunder, you guys, because now we can play this hidden move to surprise our opponent, bishop a6. Simply sacrificing our bishop, because now if b takes a6, we can simply take that knight with check, and after king e7, cause I mean, what else can black do here? If knight d7 blocking the check, we can simply win black's free bishop on d6. So they have to play king e7, after which I recommend giving black a check, and after queen d7 blocking the check, you first of all take the bishop, and after king takes, you take the next pawn, that's check, and again after king takes, you go queen b4 check, so that if king c6 is played, you simply go knight e5 check, which is a triple fork once again, and black should resign. And so if black doesn't take your bishop and instead plays something like bishop takes f4, well, you can simply take the undefended pawn on b7 plus attacking two of black's pieces. If castle short, you first of all take the knight on c6 and still maintaining the threat of taking the rook on a8. And so if rook b8 is played, now you can take the dark squared bishop. And this is just clearly winning for you. I don't even know why I'm still on this trap. Let's look at the last trap. Trap number 10, I call this the bishop takes g5 trap for black. So this is where white starts with d4, then you go knight f6. And if they play bishop a4, you simply go pawn to c6. And once again, pawn to e3, as you can see in the Lichess database, is by far the top played move. After which, I recommend that you go pawn to g5 if you are playing against lower rated opponents. The idea is that if they take your pawn, you simply go queen a5 check, Kaspar's signature move, and at the same time winning a free bishop on g5. But hey, ever since I published this video that has popped up in the card above, most people seem to know this little trap, and so I don't really recommend to go pawn to g5 against prepared opponents. Instead, after pawn to e3, go pawn to d6, as if you want to play the king's Indian defense, and white here will play knight f3, after which I recommend you go bishop g4, pinning the knight to the queen. If they unpin their knight, the top played move again, you can safely take on f3, and after bishop takes, now this is when you can play bishop g5, intending to go h5 next, and once again if bishop takes g5, you have queen a5 check, and winning white's bishop on g5. Ladies and gentlemen, this is all for today. If at all you enjoyed watching this video, why not giving it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if at all you haven't already, because that's how you encourage me to keep on making more wonderful videos just like this one. And don't forget to sign up for my free masterclass at www.KaspaChess.com. Right there you can also check out my courses that are very affordable at the moment. I recommend getting my semi-slav defense course, especially if you're a beginner or an intermediate level player. Thank you so much for watching this video once again. Until next time.